Soundstripe.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to My Spouse is My Best Friend. I'm your co-host, Nicole.
I'm Dr. Green.
And today we're talking about, can you have friends of the opposite sex in marriage?
Can you?
Well, possibly.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. So, is it okay to have friends of the opposite sex when you're married? So, we hear this question a lot, and we say yes, as long as there's certain boundaries and certain common ground rules that you and your spouse talk about before you kind of jump into this scenario.
Yeah, 'cause I think before we got married, or even before when we were dating, most of them, I just got along with females better than I did males because they had more interesting things to talk about. So I felt like it was easier to talk to females and have meaningful conversations. So when she came into my life the second time, I had a lot of female friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so while we were dating, we were just friends. We had work friends, or we could politely call them our work wives and our work husbands, gym buddies, and a lot of college friends. So we had friends of the opposite sex as we came into our relationship, and so as we built our foundation, we talked about what does that look like now that we're moving into a more serious relationship and then getting engaged and then getting married. How does those relationships with our friends of the opposite sex, how does that look, and where are they? Where do they fit into the dynamics of our marriage?
Yeah, I mean, the issue is not friendship, right? The issue is, boundaries. Where are those boundaries at? And we had to have those hard conversations because, there was, while we were dating, because, I saw my friends as my friends and that was it. But there's other friends that I had that I slept with, right? But we were still friends, or I had ex-girlfriends that were still friends. And, that started making her feel uncomfortable because I'd never lied to her. So she would ask me, have you slept with her? Well, yeah, we're still friends. Or that's my ex-girlfriend. And so that made her a little uncomfortable.
She gotta go.
So so I used to send text messages like "Happy birthday" or "How you doing?" or once or twice a year, see how let's check up on them. And after a while, she just said, "Hey, that's making me uncomfortable." Mm-hmm. I said, "Why? They're just friends. I mean, what? They've been around for longer than you have in some cases. Not longer because we've known each other forever, but the second time around,
I'm the queen."
And so we had to talk about it, and we came to the consensus that, hey, the boundary is if you slept with them, she got to go.
She got to go. Friendship. She's not invited to the wedding.
So, I understood where she was coming from because I had to look at it from her standpoint instead of my own.
Yep. And so when we got married, we remembered that our marriage is a covenant, right? And not just a contract. And so Ephesians 5:25 says sacrificial love prioritizes your spouse's emotional safety.
And that's what I had to lean on when we made that decision.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so, again, it was all about emotional things. So the females that he had slept with, he had a physical and emotional bond tied to it. And so I was like, no, they got to go. But those other females that were, that you didn't sleep with, that you were actually friends with.
And they were friends.
I get it. And there's
benefits.
Yeah, those had to go. When we got married, those had to go. And they were not invited to the wedding. So yeah, and so we do have friends, and even into our marriage, there were friends that we brought into the marriage of the opposite sex because they respect our covenant, right? And so I had guy friends that was there before we started dating that I immediately introduced him to them, and we double dated. We went out, and they made sure that he knew that they were like big brothers in my life, not just friends.
And same goes here. I started introducing her to the friends that I had that I didn't sleep with, and making sure that she knew who they were so she'd feel comfortable, and made it a point to do that, so that when I'm talking on the phone or whatnot, she's like, oh, that's Dorothy, or oh, that's Megan, or whoever it may be, and move on because she knows that we set those boundaries.
Right.
But when you have friends, and especially in a marriage, in our marriage, you don't really do friends, right? most of our friends are past or we're not.
Right.
I mean, but when you go out, if you're working or you're in your workspace, you might have,
Mhm.
you know, a friendship relationship with somebody that you can
Right.
talk to. But in those situations, there are danger zones that you look out for.
Yeah. And so look out for those danger zones. So start out with emotional affairs, start subtly, right? And so you're whispering, you're having conversations. With the guys of the opposite sex, I do not have conversations that I feel like it's inappropriate, or would I have that conversation if my husband was standing next to me?
Yeah, fellas, you know the game. If you sit in there and you start hiding conversations or going off to another room or deleting messages or sharing personal struggles with the opposite sex or comparing your wife and saying, "Oh, my wife does that," you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So when you start going down that road, it's time to cut that friendship off and maybe reevaluate what you're doing.
Right. Yeah. And again, sorry, our dog is scratching right in front of us, so forgive us. So again, if you won't say it in front of your spouse, don't say it at all. And remember, keep your healthy boundaries to protect your marriage. And remember, your spouse is your priority. So no matter what Keith or Susan is saying to you, that should go by the wayside. Your spouse is your priority.
Yeah. So basically, you discuss your comfort levels. Emotionally, how you feel, set boundaries, have open communication. Don't have locked phone. Well, you might lock your phone, but your wife, she has access to everything I got. And there's nothing that we hide with that. So building that trust, right? So when you trust your spouse, those things kind of go by the wayside anyways.
Yeah. And so my question to you is, if you're saying, no, Dr. J, no, Nicole, my spouse can't have the friends of opposite sex, I question you to ask why. Why are you feeling that way? What do you have going on, or what's happened to you historically for you to feel like that this message does not pertain to you?
Yeah, because that means maybe you're bringing emotional baggage from another relationship. Maybe you don't have the trust that you thought you had in your spouse.
Yeah.
So the question is why, right?
Right.
Because I trust that she's going to make the right decisions, and I trust that if she's, having friends or whatnot, or talking to another male, that either I'm gonna meet him or she's gonna tell me about him or whatnot. And like you said, it's about the covenant, right? And my covenant, and that comfort level, comes into play, and you start talking about that.
Yeah. All right. So some practical questions a couple should ask is, would I feel comfortable if the roles were reversed?
Mm-hmm.
That's a biggie.
That's a big one. Am I emotionally leaning into this person? Am I telling my personal business, especially in my marriage, to this opposite sex?
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's okay for me to do it, but it's not okay for my spouse to do it. Does this friendship strengthen or strain my marriage?
Is my spouse peace being protected?
That's a good one. Because again, your spouse is your priority.
When we talk about covenant and not a contract, you got to think about, you made a covenant before God, and you have a covenant with God. And God's covenant is in front of everything, right? And you should treat your marriage as the same. That covenant should come first in everything. So talk about it, have conversations about it, set boundaries.
That's all I have. That's all I got. So we want to hear from you. Do you agree or do you disagree with what we're saying today?
Yeah. So comment, like, and subscribe, of course. Go check out our website. My Spouse Is My Best Friend.
Nope. My Spouse, mybestfriend.com. You try it again, but I appreciate your effort.
Okay.
And I hope
link in there somewhere.
It goes. And I hope that you all have enjoyed our 28 days of Black love. So if you haven't had a chance to look at it, check out our socials, check out our website. So each day of Black History Month, we've been showcasing Black loves. And so we have some more for the rest of the week. And then starting next month, in the month of March, we'll have a this or that. So you want to be like Jay-Z and Beyonce moguls, or do you want to be like Karen Washington and her husband, just behind the scenes, quiet and in love? So look out for those.
All right. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. Also join our
Lovebird
community. So we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Soundstripe.